us about computer licenses in government agencies.
Yeah. So most of what Doge is finding, you don't need to be Sherlock Holmes. Okay, it's very obvious, basic stuff. So in every government department, I say every because we've not yet found a single exception. There are far too many software licenses and media subscriptions, meaning many more software licenses and media subscriptions than there are humans in the department.
Like you were saying, like an agency with 15,000 people might have 30,000 licenses.
Yes.
and even of the...
Now, could be a couple things. Could be that they bought a bulk of them and they got a deal on those licenses because the company can offer a deal to the government where, let's say you need 20,000 licenses and for the software. And if you buy 30,000, this is the corporate thing that they offer, that these companies offer to other companies, that if you buy 30,000, you get a break on the price. If you get 50,000, you get a break on the price. And you can also use it across the board. And there is a zero licensing aspect. There's almost a, like Adobe has a free use policy and a like a paid policy. Like if you're going to make professional stuff and if you use stock footage or any of their stuff, you have to have a special license to use those things. Again, the government is not immune to that, but it's not under the same licensing requirements as a private company. So it may be that you get 50,000 licenses for like a bulk of licenses that you can use and hand out to people. And if people need to come on temporarily as workers, you would give them that for the time being. Let's say it's FEMA, for example, and then you give it out during times. You go, here's a license for you. You need to make all these like things in the paper about how to that they put in every week to tell you how to make sure you've got all your documents in order to get your housing for the next 6 months. And it's an ongoing thing, but it only ends, after a year and a half, it ends. And then they rescind it and they hang on to it. And that license is handed out to the next person. Okay. So they have the regular ones who use it all the time and the extension ones, just saying. And so they buy a bulk of them. And that's how the company works with like private companies. So the federal government has to do that too.
15,000 employees, a good chunk of them hadn't used the license, had never logged on or used the application.
Yes. We found entire situations of software licenses or media subscriptions where there were 0 logins.
Wow.
So it had
and yet we were paying for it.
Yes, so the government was paying.
Okay. Also, 0 logins at their primary terminal, 0 logins on their private devices, or 0 logins on their mobile devices, or all of the above, or none. Just saying.
For thousands of licenses of
this is all trust me, bro.
Software or media subscriptions, and no one had ever logged in even once.
Or like credit cards. You found the same thing with government credit cards.
We found that there are twice as many credit cards as there are humans.
And I
still don't have a good explanation for why this.
I have because of government oversight, different payment schedules have to do with things that are done in the regular work of the office and expensed work outside. So the idea being is that they have a credit card that they can use for purchases or things that they have to do in regard to the office. Fucking keeping the coffee filter stocked or what have you. They have those kind. And then they have the kind that you use when you're traveling. You have split accounts. You have a firewall between departments, but an overlap in what they do because of Department of Homeland Security, for example. And so you'd have things that would go on, one particular budgetary outlay and another particular budgetary outlay, but the same department is dealt with by 2 different committees, for example. And the committees have passed a law saying you have to, if you're using these items for this stuff, you have to let us know. And if you're buying these kind of items. So the easiest way is they just use them for separate things. I mean, you could maybe argue that there's a more efficient way of doing it. I don't quite know if there is, depending on what use case we're talking about. But pretending you don't know why that would ever happen is a lie.
Is the case. And these are 10,000.
And Turd Ferguson is the third guy. Is that what you guys are saying? Yeah. Ted Cruz, Turd Ferguson, and Elon Felon Monk.
$1,000 limit cards. So it's a lot of money.
Is it?
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Credit card isn't money. Credit card is a holding space for purchases that money will pay for later. But if you have a card with no balance on it, there's no money involved at all.
Incompetence that you're finding, or is this like the biggest money laundering scheme in the history of the world?
Also, I'm going to go with, he's going to say money laundering because it makes it sound boss or something. But you notice the little Doge sign on the mantle, like some fuckwad just leaned it up against the wall next to Ted Cruz's head, and they centered it between two of these, not compensating for where the camera is, because it's just, and it's not even centered on this thing. But hey, what do I know? They're in a room where everything's a target.
That you're finding.
Look, I think it's mostly, if you say, look, what's the waste to fraud ratio?
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's like 80% waste, 20% fraud. But you do have these sort of gray areas.
Yeah.
So,
Example
would be, so we saw a lot of payments going out of Treasury that had no payment code and no explanation for the payment. And then we'd try to figure out what that payment is, and we'd see that, okay, that contract was supposed to be shut off, but someone forgot to shut off that contract, and so the company kept getting money.
Wow.
No, you didn't. Name them directly. If the contract ended and they stopped getting work and they were continuing to cash the check, that is fraud. That's not waste. That's fraud. That's garbage. Horse shit. Anybody who does that has been committing a crime the entire time they did it. If you get a check, that's wire fraud. Jesus Christ. Watch the Firm, motherfucker. Watch The Untouchables. There's 3 fucking crimes in getting a check you shouldn't be getting from the federal government after a contract is ended, cashing that check, and then, and then not reporting it, I guess. So let me get this straight. These guys have been paying taxes on a government contract payment that they've been getting, even though they haven't been doing the work. Never happened. Garbage. Name the company. This isn't something for Doge. This is something for Pam Bondi. But they have one problem. It's a lie.
Now, is that waste or fraud?
Yeah, both.
It's no. This is a waste of time, and you're a fraud. How about that? But that's where it's both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, but
it's sort of
if you
a
know
gray
you're getting
area
something
because
you're not supposed to get.
You're not supposed to get it, but the government sent it to you, and nobody from the government asked for it back. Or take, for example, the $1.9 billion given to Stacey Abrams, a fake NGO.
Utter insanity.
Explain that.
No, that's not the same. I mean, you could disagree with it if you want to, but they didn't finish a contract, and that money came after the contract was over.
That's corrupt. That's just corrupt, I think. That's paying off cronies at that point.
1,000%.
Yeah. And by the way, she knew. Like when you get $2 billion, you don't miss that. That's not
It's not an accident.
That's not.
Right. So this is not germane to the conversation you're talking about that you're saying happens 80% of the fucking time. You give 0 examples of that, and you just hate Stacey Abrams because you don't like the environmental justice work that she's doing, because you don't give a rat's ass if black people in the inner city are drinking leaded water. That's what that's about.
Allegedly, it was for environmentally friendly appliances or something, and they've given like 100 appliances so far for $2 billion. It's a very expensive toaster oven.
But they're really nice.
One hell of an appliance.
Yeah, that's not what it's for. And the 1,000 toasters you're talking about, I mean, again, it's great when you don't actually have to give any of the details, and you can just kind of pick and choose little elements of it. This is the same kind of thinking that gave us like $10,000 toilet seats, and that means the Pentagon can't do anything right. Instead of, no, that's how they, on the one hand, divert funds in some cases, and on the other hand, if you have a toilet on a nuclear bomber, it's not something you can pick up at Home Depot, asshole. It's somewhere, no pun intended, between the device astronauts have to use and an incinerator. And it has to be able to fly at altitudes that are incredibly highly pressurized still function and not destroy the plane it's on. And it also has to be resilient. And it has to be something you can use if you're in an extended situation, for if you have to stay in the air for a fucking year, that kind of shit. Like, that's what they think about. And it has to be handmade and tested. And if you, per unit price, it turns out they're 10,000, but it's the experimentation to make a toilet that you can put on a fucking bomber that won't kill the pilot if they hit really bad turbulence at that high altitude. Yeah, by breaking apart. It's but can we stop? Can we just stop pretending that we don't understand that a toilet on an airplane is something you buy at the store, or any device that you buy for an airplane or a submarine, or like a nuclear sub, something that's in the water at like, I don't know, incredible depths for months at a time, isn't going to cost a lot of money, or, and this is where we get to this asshole, a lot of lives. You want to know why a lot of government shit costs a lot of fucking money, especially in the Pentagon and NASA, and in experimenting with fucking traffic lights and all that kind of shit? You know why they spend so much fucking money on it? It's so that we don't have to learn the hard way. That the cost is either money or human lives. And these guys are saying, I don't know, really. I mean, that's what they sign up for, isn't it? Soldiers should just die, and we go, well, it's not, I guess we, that toilet didn't work. Just killed them, just blew up, cracked in half while they were sitting on it, thinking nothing of it. Right? That's the idea. It's so stupid.
That Sub-Zero fridge, boy,
Yeah.
it's nice.
Right. This is obviously one of the biggest scam fraud holes
Also, just a lie.
we've uncovered, which is really crazy, is
By the way, you'll also notice they jump around with no details and kind of like they joke about it's kind of like. No. If you're accusing somebody of $2 billion of fraud, and I would recommend that Stacey Abrams sue all three of these assholes, but start with Ted Cruz. It's his fucking show. Sue him. Sue him. Because they just dropping a senator, a sitting senator, dropping on a podcast with Elon Musk that you have committed $2 billion worth of fraud, that's libelous. That qualifies. He's a government employee, and he needs that extra legal expense added to his fucking life right now.
is that the government can give money to a so-called nonprofit with very few controls, and then
Oh, you mean like military contractors like She or Blackwater? Isn't Halliburton a non-governmental organization? Hey, isn't SpaceX a non-governmental organization? And so you have a problem with the government outsourcing their priorities to private entities. That's the problem. Hey, buddy, in a couple of cases, I'm with you. I think one of the ways you could save a lot of money is cancel SpaceX's contracts immediately and let Bezos pay full freight for his, with all that Amazon money for his rockets to rent the platform that NASA has instead of paying him to do it. How about that?
and there's no auditing subsequently of that nonprofit. So there's no. So this is where with the 1.9 billion to Stacey Abrams, who's they then give themselves extremely lavish, like insane salaries, expense everything to the nonprofit, buy jets and homes and all sorts of things.
Stacey Abrams hasn't bought a jet, insofar as I know, with the money for her nonprofit or lavish homes. If you have any evidence of that, you should share it. But what he's really tying this to is BLM. What he's doing is he's taking what the BLM heads did with largely corporate and Hollywood money, not federal money, and he's laying that on Stacey Abrams, because what's the difference? One black lady, another black lady. That's what he's doing. And for the record, that's what Musk has done.
Live like kings and queens.
Yes.
The kings and queens reference, by the way, is a reference to the fact that black people often refer to themselves as when we were kings, and Queen Latifah kind of stuff, and the welfare queen, that kind of stuff. You'll hear them throw around kings and queens when it comes to black people a lot. They'll never bring it up with Donald Trump, who clearly thinks of himself as a monarch. Mainly because they'd have to deal with, the emperor has no clothes kind of references. That's why.
The tax paradigm.
Correct.
You mentioned,
and this is happening at scale. It's not just one or two. We're seeing this everywhere.
Now,
No, you're not. If you were, you could cite a specific example from the Stacey Abrams thing, for example. Like you could give, I don't know, one line. We saw in what they purchased the same year this came out, she bought this and it was directly related to blah, 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 right? You could do that, which you have not done. Also, you could, if it was everywhere, you could bring up the company that kept cashing checks for a contract they were no longer fulfilling for an undisclosed amount of time. Bullshit. Again, these motherfuckers have to go to jail. If you find people that are doing that, it's a crime. It's a direct crime. And I can only think of two reasons why Pam Bondi and Kash Patel aren't rounding people up using this Doge evidence, right? Why aren't they doing it? Well, it's one of two reasons. One, it's because it doesn't exist and they're just fucking making it up, and they're pretending that contracts that ended under Biden have been ongoing because they were still listed there, and they're like, we'll cut this off. They would keep getting checks if this was still listed here. And like, no, it isn't. That's not how it works. We have a whole accounting department that takes care of that. That'd be the one. One, it doesn't exist. They're fucking making it up. Or two, it involves far too many Republicans. That it's the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world that are engaging in this shit. And if the only reason I can imagine that if that person is real, that person they talk about who had a 3-month contract that went on for fucking ever, the only reason I can imagine that they wouldn't name and shame this human being is because they work at fucking Mar-a-Lago, or they worked on Matt Gaetz's campaign, or they were yet another friend of Jeffrey Epstein, just like Trump is. And the money, the roots of the money go to him. Seriously, if it's a liberal, look at how they're shitting on Stacey Abrams just because they hate her guts. If it was clearly whoever that guy is they keep bringing up is a Republican and a friend of theirs and a big donor of Ted Cruz's. That's the only logical reason. I did not flip you off, Albert. I flipped off these two guys. That guy and that guy.